There's a version of this story where Ferrari has nothing to worry about. It's the version everyone in the paddock currently believes. In that version, Ferrari owns Haas, the way a parent company owns a satellite. Ferrari builds the engines. Ferrari sells the gearboxes. Ferrari's wind tunnel shapes the car, and Ferrari's simulator trains the drivers. The contract runs through 2028, and the arrangement has hummed along for a decade. A loyal little team at the back, feeding data upward, taking parts downward, asking for nothing it isn't given. Comfortable, settled. The kind of relationship you stop watching because nothing about it ever changes. That's exactly why almost nobody has noticed what's quietly rearranging itself underneath it. Because there's a strange detail sitting at the center of this partnership that, once you see it, is very hard to unsee. One of the largest engine manufacturers on the entire planet has walked into this team, written its name across the car, and agreed to run a rival's power unit. Toyota, a company that has built championship-winning engines in almost every category it's ever entered, is paying to be a passenger in someone else's engine. If you find that as odd as the handful of engineers who've started asking about it, stay with this and get subscribed, because the answer to that one question rewrites everything the paddock thinks this deal is. Think about what that actually means. A company with the resources to build anything is choosing, deliberately, not to build the one thing it's most famous for. It's spending real money on facilities, on people, on infrastructure, inside a team it doesn't technically control, to help that team run an engine made by one of Toyota's oldest global rivals. On the surface, it's generosity, a giant lifting up a minnow. But giants don't spend like that for gratitude. And the people who've spent time around this partnership recently will tell you the same thing quietly. The most valuable thing changing hands in this deal was never the money, or the logo, or the simulator. It was something Ferrari didn't realize it was giving away. And by the time the full shape of it becomes obvious, the contract that everyone read as protection may look a great deal more like a countdown. Ferrari thinks it's the one holding the leash. That's the version everyone believes. It's worth asking who's actually holding what. To understand what's shifting, you have to understand how Ferrari quietly controlled this team for a decade, because the control was never really about the parts. It was about the room nobody talks about, the simulator. For years, Haas didn't own one. Not a proper driver-in-the-loop simulator, the machine every modern team lives inside to test setups and prepare for a weekend. Haas had to borrow Ferraris in Maranello. And borrowing it meant flying engineers to Italy, working on Ferrari's schedule, on Ferrari's hardware, on Ferrari's terms, which, as the team's own principal has admitted, was so logistically painful they could barely use it during the season at all. Most of the crew was in England. The machine was in Italy. The days were limited. There's a subtler cost buried in that arrangement, and it's the one that matters. When you develop your car inside someone else's building, they see everything. Every setup idea you try before you commit to it. Every aerodynamic experiment that works, and every one that doesn't. Every driver's quiet weakness, written into the data in plain sight for the people reading it. All of it runs across the host servers first, seen by the host engineers first. It doesn't take bad intentions or spying or a single broken rule. It's just the nature of the room. When you build in someone else's house, the tenant has no secrets from the landlord. And for 10 years, Haas has been the tenant. That's the room Toyota just built Haas a private version of. As part of the deal, Toyota funded and engineered a brand new simulator installed directly inside the Haas base in Banbury, England. The team's first of its own, brought online by the principal's own timeline, around the middle of the 2026 season. On the surface, it's a convenience. No more flights to Italy, no more waiting for a slot. But look one layer down. For the first time in its history, Haas has a development space of its own. One where the people writing the software, calibrating the machine, correlating it to the real car, answer to Toyota rather than to Maranello. Ferrari still supplies the engine. Ferrari still lends its wind tunnel. But that one window it always had, the quiet, complete view into how its customer thinks, has begun, very softly, to close. A closing window is only interesting if someone's building something on the other side of it. Which brings us to a place that has almost nothing to do with Formula One's current map, and everything to do with where this is heading. A large industrial complex in Cologne, Germany, a facility with a Formula One grade wind tunnel and serious carbon fiber capability, left standing from the last time Toyota took this sport seriously and then walked away. And that walking away is the ghost hanging over all of this. Between 2002 and 2009, Toyota ran its own Formula One team out of that Cologne factory, and it spent enormous sums doing it, by most accounts north of $3 billion across the run, one of the largest budgets the sport had ever seen. What it got for the money became the cautionary tale of the paddock. Not a single race win. Not one. The richest team that never reached the top step until a global financial crisis gave it the excuse to quit almost overnight. For a company that wins Le Mans and rally titles at will, that unfinished Formula One story is the one wound that never healed. That factory, the one the failure was built in, never fully went dark. It builds Toyota's rally and endurance machinery now, but the bones of an entire Formula One operation have been sitting there, warm, for over 15 years. A wind tunnel, the fabrication, the institutional memory of how to build a fast car, all quietly kept breathing long after the last Toyota Formula One car stopped racing. Reporting around the partnership suggests Toyota's longer aim is to gradually bring more of Haas's engineering in-house through that infrastructure, carbon design and manufacturing among it. The exact capabilities a team normally has to spend years and fortunes building from nothing. Haas has never manufactured much of its own car. It buys what it can and outsources the rest. What Toyota is quietly offering is a way to change that, using a factory that already exists, already staffed, already capable. Nothing about that requires an announcement. It just requires time and a partner patient enough to move one workflow at a time. None of this on its own would trouble Ferrari. Teams upgrade, partners invest. But there's a third layer, and it's the one that turns a business arrangement into something closer to an education. Toyota didn't just fund the buildings, though. It put its own people inside the garage. Through the development program attached to the partnership, Toyota has embedded its own engineers, analysts, and mechanics into the Haas trackside operation. The people in the garage on a race weekend, hands on the car. And that car, every weekend, is powered by a Ferrari engine. When Maranello delivers its power units and its confidential energy deployment maps, it's increasingly Toyota's embedded staff who live alongside that hardware, managing how it's packaged into the car, watching how it behaves across a stint, learning weekend after weekend exactly how a top-tier Italian hybrid system actually works when the lights go out. Let's be clear about what that is and isn't. There's nothing illegal here, nothing stolen, no secret being cracked open. It's something quieter and, if you're Ferrari, more uncomfortable. It's proximity. It's a rival's finest engineers getting a paid, front-row, season-long education in the single hardest problem in modern Formula One, and being thanked for their help while they get it. Which finally answers the strange question we started with. Why would an engine giant choose to run a rival's engine? The timing is everything. Building a 2026 power unit from a clean sheet would have cost hundreds of millions, swallowed years of dyno development, and offered no guarantee it lands anywhere near the front. A gamble even Mercedes and Ferrari, with decades of hybrid history behind them, have found brutal. The 2026 rules made the engine harder than it has ever been. The power unit is now a near 50-50 split between the combustion side and a colossal electrical deployment, and mastering that electrical half, the battery temperatures, the energy harvesting, the deployment maps that decide how hard a car can push down a straight, is the single most complex problem in the sport right now. It's precisely the problem that has left the whole grid scrambling this season. Toyota looked at that mountain and, the pattern suggests, made a colder choice than climbing it blind. It chose to watch someone else climb it first, from the inside, with its own people holding the ropes, taking notes the entire way up. And here's where the honest version of this has to slow down, because the dramatic read isn't the only one on the table. Toyota has said, repeatedly and on the record, that it has no plans to build a Formula One engine and no intention of taking the team over. Its people talk about developing drivers and engineers, not seizing control. Haas's principal calls the Ferrari relationship the foundation of everything the team does, and insists Maranello stays central. Toyota even reorganized its own branding early in 2026 in a way that muddied the grand master plan narrative rather than sharpening it. Every individual layer here has a calm, innocent explanation. The argument was never that any single move is a smoking gun. It's that, stacked together, they lean with an uncomfortable consistency in one direction. Every one of those layers leans toward the same date. Because there's one number that quietly organizes this entire story, and it's the end of 2028. That's when the Ferrari engine deal expires. Everything Toyota is building, the private simulator, the dormant factory waking up, the embedded engineers, the year-on-year education and hybrid deployment, matures on almost exactly that timeline. Whether by design or by the simple gravity of how these things unfold, the moment Ferrari's contract runs out is the moment Toyota's own operation would, in theory, be ready to stand on its own. Ferrari's leadership has treated that 2028 deal as a win, a loyal customer locked in, its data and its influence secured for years. Read it from the other side of the garage, and it looks less like a lock and more like a lease with an expiry date, quietly funding the very capability that could one day replace the landlord. Nobody at Maranello has said they're worried. Nobody at Toyota has said they're leaving. And that, more than any leaked memo, is what makes this the most patient game on the grid. So here's the question worth sitting with. The one company that could turn Haas into a genuine rival is the same company currently paying its bills. And the one thing standing between a partnership and a departure is a contract that runs out in a little over 2 years. When it does Ferrari keep the loyal little team it thinks it owns? Or does it discover, too late, that it spent 4 years training the engineers who were always going to leave? Tell me where you land in the comments. Is Toyota quietly building an escape route, or is this just a giant helping a minnow, and the paddock reading ghosts into a sponsorship?